What do you do as a rideshare driver, as a delivery driver, as a grocery shopper when you get deactivated based on a false claim by a passenger or by a customer? What do you do then? What do you do about tip baiting? What do you do about just accusations from false accusations from passengers in general? Guys, we just talked to two lawyers about exactly some of the steps that drivers can take to start to get themselves reactivated to fight back against some of these things that are happening here. I want to do a little bit of an intro here because the quality of this video isn't great. And I do sincerely apologize for that, but the content of this is so good. I think it's important to get that out there to you guys. So check this out. False accusations by passengers, false deactivations, tip baiting. These are some of the big issues that are facing both rideshare and delivery drivers right now, as we are kind of in this pandemic. How do drivers kind of get around these situations? What's going on, guys? My name is Brandon Sellers from Gridwise here. Back again with the guys at LegalRideshare, Bryant at LegalRideshare, to help answer some of these pressing questions around, hey, how as a driver can I be protecting myself from some of these unfortunate situations? Bryant, how are you doing today here?
Hey, Brandon, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Cool. For everyone that doesn't know you at LegalRideshare, which I'm surprised if you guys don't know LegalRideshare at this point, could you give the folks a little introduction of who you are and what you guys do at LegalRideshare?
Sure. My name is Bryant Greening. I'm the attorney and co-founder at LegalRideshare. We are the only law firm in the United States that's entirely dedicated to Uber and Lyft accident and injury claims. We've been assisting Uber, Lyft drivers, gig workers for the past 5-6 years. And as the industry has grown, we've grown with it.
Cool. Awesome. Let's jump right into it here, Bryant. We hear all the time about drivers getting falsely accused by passengers of doing God knows what. And it seems to have only increased in frequency amid COVID-19 and the situation we're in over these last couple of months. How can drivers protect themselves? What can they do to ensure that they are, they can't stop the false accusations, but at least that you're not getting kind of the backlash from these false accusations?
Well, the key is evidence. So we hear from drivers all the time that they've been falsely accused of something, that they've been permanently or temporarily deactivated, and they have really no clue how to go about solving that situation.
Right.
The best thing that you can do is collect evidence at the scene to ensure that your rights are protected. So what does that mean? It means dash cams. There are only so many ways that you can ensure that your word and your truth is presented to the insurance company or to the rideshare company. One of those is recordings. We encourage drivers to have a dash cam installed in their car that faces both forward and backward so that anything that goes on in the vehicle is documented. There's no he said situation when there's a camera in the car because the camera doesn't lie.
The camera does not lie. I love that. Love that saying there. Drivers need to keep that in mind. One question I do hear about dash cams all the time is, well, is it legal for me to have a dash cam? And it sounds like I have no idea. I'm not you. I'm not a lawyer. But it sounds like things kind of change from something from state to state, from city to city. How do you know if it's okay for you to have a dash cam?
So it's a pretty complicated legal question, but I'm going to kind of synthesize it down to 2 points.
Okay.
Various states have various recording laws. Most states are either a one-party consent state or a two-party consent state.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is a one-party consent state allows recordings in private areas when one of the people involved is aware that the recording is taking place. In two-party consent states, both of the parties that are being recorded need to have knowledge and consent that the recording is occurring. Regardless of what kind of state you live in, if you have a sign in your car that says, warning, you're being recorded, there's a dash cam here, smile, you're on camera, something along those lines, you're going to be protected because you've put them on notice
Gotcha.
that this recording is there, and they don't then have any reasonable expectation of privacy.
Gotcha. So the key thing is to just make it very clear that you're recording. Have a sign. Obviously, your dash cam is there and it's probably flashing on. It's not hidden or anything like that. It's very clear that you're recording.
Right. And I would even tell the passengers when they get in the car. It might initially be an awkward conversation the first time you have it, but when somebody enters your vehicle, just say, hey, I just want you to know that I've got a dash cam here. It's for your protection and mine. Is that okay with you? And if they say, no, it's not okay, then you be the one to cancel the ride. Say, okay, no problem. I understand. I'll cancel the ride. You won't incur any sort of fee or anything. You can request a different driver. 9 times out of 10, if not more, the passenger is going to be thankful that there's that extra safety precaution being taken. They'll gladly accept the ride. And then you've got documentation on video that they don't have any problem. Both parties consent. Doesn't matter whether you're in a one-party consent state or a 2.
Right. I think there for drivers that are doing that, which makes sense, it's probably important to kind of lead with, hey, for both your safety and mine, makes a lot of sense for us to record this ride, just making sure that, there's documented evidence of exactly what happens in these rides. So that makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah. And, another thing that we have to think about is most of these recording laws are for private situations only. So they don't want people to be putting cameras in places where people expect that their conversations are not going to be heard, in private residences, in a bathroom, places like that. There's an argument to be made, and I think a very strong one, that an Uber or Lyft car is not a private place. You have no reasonable expectation of privacy. So regardless of which state you're in, I think you're going to be okay having that camera up, either way.
Right. That makes a ton of sense. Now, if we roll this situation, let's say it goes a step further, not only are you getting kind of falsely accused, but you end up being deactivated for whatever reason. And we've seen a lot of deactivations here over these last couple months, really a lot with Lyft, interestingly enough. What can drivers do, one, certainly to protect themselves from that initial deactivation, but 2, once they're deactivated, do they have any recourse?
The short answer is most of the time, unfortunately, not. A driver is an independent contractor in most states. I know in California, we're kind of fighting that right now.
Yeah.
But independent contractors can be let go by their employers for any reason. And I tell drivers all the time, if Uber or Lyft doesn't like the color of your shirt, they can deactivate your account. Now, that doesn't mean that that's fair. That doesn't mean that that's the way it should be. But the current state of the law indicates that's the way it is. So what we've been doing at LegalRideshare is trying to advocate for stronger labor rights for gig workers. We want workers to have the opportunity to have a hearing, to have an opportunity to appeal a deactivation, to just be heard, to present evidence. And we don't think that's too much to ask. So writing letters to the companies, putting them on notice in written word that you're not accepting this deactivation, that creates a paper trail. Sending letters to Congress people and city council people, that creates notice. Talking to media when they're willing to listen, that creates notice. And eventually we're going to get to a point where the companies have to listen to what the labor lawyers and what the lawmakers are saying, which is give these workers some protection. You can't just pull the rug out from underneath them with no warning whatsoever.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. One of the things that we always say is make a lot of noise. Make as much noise as possible. Whether that be I didn't think of just writing a letter, but certainly that works really well. Social media, leveraging Twitter, Facebook, and things like that. Definitely, we've seen that have an effect. We see, just simply continuing to hit their support channels in terms of making sure that on a daily basis, you're kind of rechecking and saying, hey guys, this is unfair. please actually take a look at things, because one of the things they don't do is it doesn't appear a lot of times that they're actually taking a look. So that makes a ton of sense to just make as much noise as possible.
We've seen drivers that have been reactivated just because they talked to the right person at the company. So sometimes it's so arbitrary that whether you're deactivated or temporarily suspended or reactivated is entirely based on who you talk to. And if you create a paper trail and you create, some noise, maybe you're going to get the right person to look at your case and give it a second opportunity, at reactivation.
Right. That makes a ton of sense. And interesting that you guys have been kind of working on this issue. Another issue that I know you guys have been kind of having some conversations around is around tip baiting, right? Where you see all these, especially with Instacart, you see folks that are essentially jacking up like their tip and then just reducing it tenfold or just completely removing it after you've actually delivered that. Any thoughts on, hey, how drivers can protect themselves from those types of situations, whether it's Instacart or DoorDash or whatever?
Yeah, tip baiting is a real problem, and especially as we've seen during the pandemic. We noticed at LegalRideshare very early on that drivers were losing tips when they were putting their lives literally on the line to make deliveries. Yeah. So we actually pitched that to CNN. They did a national story on it, and we've actually seen that senators like Elizabeth Warren are drafting legislation that would make it illegal for rideshare and delivery companies to have their systems work in a way that allow consumers to tip bait and unilaterally and unfairly pull tips away from drivers. So as we sit here today, the laws in place don't really provide a ton of protection for drivers in those situations. I would say that there could be a valid contract claim where you could actually sue the customer because you entered into an agreement with that customer and they then after the fact changed the terms. But if we're looking at the way that this is moving and the eyes and ears that we have on the issue, I expect there to be solid laws and regulations in place that prevent this exact type of behavior, because it's unacceptable and it's evil to put somebody in harm's way and then change the terms of the agreement that you reached.
It is. It's shocking to me, especially how this was going on kind of at the height of, not that we're not at the height now, but like at the height of kind of COVID-19, people were doing this type of thing, which is kind of, like you said, it's just like an evil thing to do. So great to hear that there's kind of legislation, definitely being thought about right now, written right now, in order to, see if there can be laws passed. Is that happening in like specific states, or what's the legal process there look like?
It's happening both federally and locally. So
okay.
We've seen Elizabeth Warren has a bill on her desk that she's drafting. This is an issue that has the ears of very powerful people. And what we would like to see is federal legislation that's directed at the companies themselves, because ultimately it's the companies that are allowing their apps to be displayed and written in a way that allows tips to be changed.
Right.
There are times certainly where changing a tip could be valid. If a customer service is poor and you originally tipped $100 and, at some fault of the driver, something didn't get done correctly, okay, we can talk about a change in tip, but there needs to be mechanisms in place to ensure that this is done fairly. Call the company, have a review process, have something in place that doesn't allow the customer to just wipe away all the earnings that a driver made, especially when they've put themselves at risk to make that delivery.
Right, because if you leave it up to the driver to need to kind of figure this out, with the end customer, well, that's incredibly difficult for the driver, right? It's almost not even going to be worth their time to have to figure things out that way. Definitely, if you can get the companies to just fix their systems, essentially, that would be that. I think that's going to end up better for everyone, because in these situations, it's not just the driver losing out, but other shoppers, that needed their goods picked up, they miss out as well by this because they're kind of not going to be in front of the line because of this, fraudulent actor. So,
right. It's a simple fix that helps honest people. So what's there to complain about?
Nothing at all. That's really awesome to kind of hear your point of view there on how do you can protect yourself from false accusations, deactivations, and some of your thoughts around tip baiting and the legislation that sounds like you guys have actually helped put in front of some very powerful people. Hopefully we're going to see action on those activities very soon. Bryant, could you give us just a rundown of, who you guys are over at LegalRideshare and what you guys do?
Yeah, so LegalRideshare has been handling accident and injury claims for gig workers for many years now. We are the only law firm in the United States that focuses on these issues. So if a rideshare driver or delivery worker is injured on the job, we're the law firm that you want to call to make sure that you get your medical bills paid, your lost wages recovered, pain and suffering, loss in normal life, whatever damages that you've sustained, you are entitled to recovery, and we can help make sure that you collect every penny that you're entitled to.
Right. Awesome. And you guys are very active on social media, right? Where can folks get in touch with you?
We are. I may spend too many late nights on Twitter and Facebook, but I do, pride myself, and our company prides itself in making sure that we are up to date on all the news, all the information that affects rideshare and gig workers. So at LegalRideshare on Twitter, LegalRideshare on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We even made a TikTok video one time. You can find us, and it's a great resource for information about rideshare generally and specifically related to the law.
Awesome. If you do have a question, rideshare and delivery drivers, about anything that happens to you on your job, there's really kind of, one place to go here. These are the experts. Hit LegalRideshare for sure. But that is all we have for you today, guys. Hope this was very informational. If I could leave you with one thing, I would say have a dash cam. Brian, if you could leave the folks with one thing, what would you say?
I'd say if you get in an accident or injury, please give us a call or reach out to us on our website, legalrideshare.com. We're always here to help.
There you go. All right, guys, have a great one.